The following is intended for mature audiences only. Discretion is advised.
What's up, besties? This is episode dirty of Childlike at Best with Mike Valdes. I am still the second part of that title. We are approaching the holiday season, and if you have any last-minute gift ideas that you need, make sure to go to our tpublic.com store and check out our merch, our Childlike at Best merch. We have hoodies, t-shirts, all kinds of stuff that you can wear and show your family and your loved ones how awesome you are and how much you love this podcast. This episode is Jakejames Lugo. JJ is a gamer and YouTuber who has a channel called Gamers with Gains. We met back at Gamer Comic Expo, and he's a really awesome guy. This episode is really fun. We talk about JJ's childhood, and we talk a lot about his YouTube channel and what he's been doing lately. I really think that you guys are going to enjoy this episode. So without further ado, please enjoy Jakejames Lugo. I don't know. I didn't hate The Last Jedi, but I also wasn't like...
I didn't like it
This
at
isn't
all.
the greatest... This isn't the worst thing in the world, but it also wasn't the best thing. I know that something that really bothered me was that my favorite character that they've created in Force Awakens, Finn, is completely useless.
Oh, you're not going to... Well, let me put it this way. I read the synopsis without spoiling anything. I'm one of those guys that, even though I'm a huge fan of stuff, I would go look at the spoilers.
Sure.
Like that's an old mentality of fandom and stuff. But, like, you really didn't like him in Last Jedi. You're not going to like him this time. You're really going to have a problem with him this time.
Yeah.
Like, it's just sad because Finn specifically, is a stormtrooper that turned.
Yeah.
That he was a stormtrooper, he became good.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff you could play with that. And other people that have reviewed all the movies have said that. Like, that's
such a
cool
great idea.
Concept. But, like, they just didn't do anything. And I blame that a lot on Rian Johnson because he had a lot of control for what was going on with The Last Jedi. And again, now we're feeling the after effects of it.
Okay. Well, these are my thoughts. If I'm right, don't tell me, but I can almost assure you that I might be.
Okay. I'll answer with a vague answer.
Sure.
So you won't know. But, like, when you see the film, then you'll be like, okay, now I know what he's saying.
I'm assuming, for the most part, this is basically a Star Wars demon possession film. So what we're going to be getting is... Kylo, he's essentially has a demon in him or whatever, and then we're going to find out later on they're going to fight and all this stuff is going to happen, and then there's going to be this epic line where she's like, Kylo, and then he goes, my name is Ben. Like that kind of a thing, where like he's finally a good guy now. So there's that. I have a really strong feeling it's going to be a demon possession film. And another thing is, since they're bringing Lando in, now I'm extremely... kind of sure and also extremely scared that now all of the black people are related.
That seems like the most common denominator. Well, I'll say this about all that you just said. Just you might want to hold off on the big popcorn when you go to the concession stand. Okay, don't even get the Skittles. Don't get the Crunch Bar. Maybe a soda. Yeah. Debatable. I'll leave that subjective to everybody, but just hold off on the popcorn. That's all I'll say. It's like, what are you talking about?
That's so funny. Okay, well... Hey everybody, this is Childlike at Best with Mike Valdes. Hey guys, guess what? I'm Mike Valdes, and today I have a great guest with me. I'm so excited to have him. I have JJ Lugo. Is it Lugo?
It's Jakejames Lugo. It's the full
That's
name,
amazing.
but people call me JJ for short.
Yeah, absolutely. So JJ, we've been talking a little bit, but the first thing we like to do here at Childlike at Best is we like to take a Flintstones vitamin.
Yes.
So I have these Flintstones complete gummies for you.
I heard about these.
Yeah.
This is a throwback because I was one of those kids that also had the Flintstones vitamins.
Oh,
but
yeah?
the hard candy one, not the gummies.
Yes.
That came in the white bottle.
I find it very adorable that you called them candies. They weren't candies
I think I
at all.
pulled out Pebbles.
There you go. That's
Pebbles, nice.
a very common
Orange.
denominator here. As you're taking that, can you please tell our listeners where you grew up?
I grew up originally in New York. I used to live in New York. I lived there for over 20 years.
Wow.
When I moved down to Florida, again, I'm a kid of the 90s, practically.
Yes.
I'm a Genesis kid. The funny thing is, and I tell everybody, and people don't believe me when I say this, but I'm a Genesis kid because I was born around the same time that Genesis came here to the United States, North America. So in Japan, it was released a year earlier as the Mega Drive. Then it came here to North America as the Sega Genesis when it was rebranded. So me and the Genesis are like this, pretty much. So it's a pretty crazy. And funny enough, my first game that I ever played, period, was Sonic the Hedgehog.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Holy cow.
So that's literally the genesis of my love for gaming.
That's really funny. I grew up in a conservative Christian home, so my Genesis was Genesis from the Bible. So
yeah, the book, the original Genesis.
The original Genesis. That's amazing, man. What parts of New York?
Upstate New York. So I was in X-Men country. I was actually
You're in X-Men country.
I was actually in Hastings-on-Hudson, like close to White Plains, like that. But however, because I'm in New York, and again, I'm Puerto Rican, a lot of us that are Puerto Rican and from New York, we have a connection to the Bronx. I had family in the Bronx, so I am still Boricua, like that. So there's a lot of connection there that my dad used to work in the city as a CO. He used to work at Rikers Island. My mom, again, she was a stay-at-home mom. And again, I got the best of both worlds with that. So I got upstate New York lifestyle with a lot of the people living up there, and I got the city lifestyle a little bit.
Nice.
I used to go between both places.
Okay, let me ask you a couple of New York questions just because this interests me.
Make confirmation of this.
Okay. No, not make confirmation. I'm just interested. What are your favorite, like, grub spots?
Spots, okay. Like, when it comes to, like, just any type of food?
Let's do any type of food, but then also best pizza, in your opinion.
Okay, the problem is with pizza, okay, I would definitely say pizza. Problem is, there are so many great pizza spots in New York. There is not just one definitive spot in New York. Of course. Because it's literally a state thing. Because the water down there, whether it's the city water or the upstate water, minus the Hudson River, because we all know the Hudson River got PCB in it, or whatever's in it and stuff. But, like, all pizza in New York is, by default, very good. Yeah. It will change. If you've never been to New York before, you never had good New York pizza stuff, when you finally do have it, it will change your perception on what pizza actually is. You'll go back home and be like, what is this garbage?
Right.
Like, straight up. Like, even down here in Florida, it's like, there's good pizza down here in some spots, but it's not New York pizza. There's stages and levels and layers to this stuff. But that's one thing. I would also say Chinese food, but specifically a lot of people say Szechuan. But even then, like, when living in New York, we don't even call it by Szechuan. We just know it as just straight up Chinese food, even though there's differences there. And again, that's another thing. Like, there's so many good spots. Again, you could go to Chinatown, obviously, in the city. Yeah. You could go upstate, so some of the different Chinese takeout spots that are really good that don't have a big brand name to them. But there's, like, no Panda Express in certain places like that. There's nothing like, Raw or whatever else. There's just regular Chinese joints that just make great Chinese food. Yeah. And, like, there's usually, again, you can find them all over the place. Other good grub spots, I think another good thing I could probably say is, like, ice cream and also pastries. Yeah. Specifically from New York, because there's Ferrara's, I believe I'm pronouncing it right, but it's Ferrara's Cafe in Little Italy that's got great New York style cheesecake or any type of cheesecake, great cafe stuff like coffees, cappuccinos, everything else, ice cream. Which is great. There you can find a Carvel's all over the place. Yes. New York, Dobbs Ferry, and like White Plains and Tarrytown and all these other places. And then finally, if I had to pick like one more honorable mention, bagels. Yeah, of course. Because it's New York, and like there's a lot of people that know how to make bagels. Like I used to live in Hastings-on-Hudson. There used to be a bagel spot right next to my place because I lived on top of a shoe store that also got turned into a toy store. And next door to it was a bagel shop. And every morning, as you would expect, that fresh smell of bagels that just authentically just takes me back to my childhood. And it used to be any type of bagel you could think of. Yeah. And then, crazy enough, across the street, Chinese joint. Across the street again, the pizzeria. Next to that, a bar. Next to that, video store. So I had everything else dead
you needed
center in the center of town. Like, it was awesome.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. What was the video store?
The video store wasn't a Blockbuster or anything. It was just a homegrown, small private business that was just a general video store there in the middle of town. But they had everything. That's where I got most of my gaming stuff from. Nice. And funny story about this, a quick one. When I was younger, at some point, when I was getting past, to middle school, to high school, things were changing in the town and stuff. So obviously the consoles, for the different games, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo, etc., was changing as well. Like we were moving on to the PlayStation 2, we were moving on to other consoles. So at one point, the video store started clearing out all their inventory. Yeah. Because people just weren't going there to rent or buy Sega games or Super Nintendo games, N64 games and stuff. So they had this box one day that was there, filled with games in their boxes and everything that they were just trying to get rid of. And at some point, they put out a sign that says, just take one, just take it, because they weren't selling them. They weren't buying. Wow. So naturally, being the smart kid that I was, I went there almost every day, started taking games from them because of take one. Eventually, they noticed me like that. So they was like, something, just to help us out, just take the box.
That's
just
crazy.
Take the box. So here's what I did. This is the funniest part. Took this box, walking down the street with this giant box full of games. People were looking at me funny, like, what did he just do? Did he just rob somebody? And that was the exact same thing my mom said when I walked upstairs to the door at the house. And she was like, what are you doing? Like, where did you get that? Like, she literally thought I just, stole something from someone.
That's crazy.
But it was this giant box full of games.
Oh my gosh, that's really funny. And they were all
They were Sega Genesis mostly, because that really built up my Sega Genesis collection. Nintendo 64. There was a couple PlayStation games. I think I had about like 3 or 4 PlayStation games there, but they weren't all that great. Again, some of them were good, like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. I know I got what was it, like WWF Attitude at one point. It was like some random games like that. But I know I ended up getting a lot of like N64 games. I got like what was it? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. I know I got the wrestling games from there, like WrestleMania 2000. I got what was it? I think I had gotten The World's Not Enough, the James Bond game, the sequel to GoldenEye.
Right.
So, but there was like a bunch of others that just built up my collection.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. What kind of kid would you say that you were in school growing up?
I was probably a geek / nerd in a very stereotypical sense, because I was one of those outsiders that wasn't popular. Because of where I was at. Now you have to understand there was a lot of race things going on at the time.
Sure.
In my town, there was a lot of upper class, rich, well, quote unquote rich, Jewish white Americans there, because it's Hastings on Hudson at the time. This is upstate New York. There wasn't a lot of urban, a lot of minorities and people of color.
Yeah.
That for a time, it started to change later on. But for the longest time, I was one of the very few Spanish kids up there. There was maybe a couple others besides myself. And I just wasn't popular, just wasn't into it. I was into gaming and stuff, and a lot of the other kids were into other things. Like a lot of them were into Star Wars a lot, even though I love Star Wars, but it was their own type of stuff. A lot of them were into Legos, maybe Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and I was all about games. I was all about comics and such, but didn't really relate to them in a lot of different ways. So I was kind of, shooed to the side a little bit. I used to get teased and picked on a lot for one reason or another, and that just perpetuated through elementary school, eventually into middle school, and things start to change after that. But again, that was like one of the struggles that a lot of people that are similar to me, that are into gaming at a young age and stuff back then in the 90s during the original console wars and stuff, could empathize with that a little, because we were all pretty much the same.
Yeah, of course. And was this like that even in high school and things like that?
No, high school changed.
Okay.
High school changed a lot. Like,
so tell me about the change.
People started to get a little bit more friendly. People started to change their attitudes a little bit. And obviously there was other minorities that were coming into the school system like that. It wasn't where it was like segregation or anything. It wasn't like, like, oh, he's like Spanish and we have to just like ostracize him. It was just kids being ignorant, kids being stupid.
Yeah.
And when people stop being stupid and they grow up and they start to become a little bit more mature, their attitudes and their mindsets and their philosophies start to change. And, you start to be a little bit more friendly. You start to make acquaintances more than anything else. I wanted a lot of friends back in high school like that, and I just didn't get it like that. It's one of those things that just doesn't work out for everybody.
Yeah, same for me. I mean, I had a core group of friends, maybe like 3 or 4, and then the rest were just like acquaintances. But the way that I was like, oh, they're my friend, even though...
And people leave school systems too. Like, some of the kids that you grew up with in elementary school and even middle school, sometimes they go away. Sometimes they go to other school systems. Sometimes they get expelled. There was one kid I remember, and we started to get a little bit more friendly as we got older, but he got expelled because he tried to make a bomb in our school.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not even kidding. Like, it's totally true. Remember, this was after a lot of the big stuff that was going on with schools. Again, there was a lot of shootings back then. That made the news. I'm talking about like when people started to get scared.
This was like around like the Columbine time, I'm assuming.
I think right before Columbine. I know, because when Columbine happened, it was
like a huge deal.
That was a huge deal. Like, there was a lot of stuff happening. But then, like, they started doing bomb drills at the school. There was people calling in bomb threats and stuff
Holy cow.
in the schools. And it wasn't just this place. It was everywhere. It wasn't rampant, but like it was happening. And I remember for that kid specifically, he tried to get a bunch of chemicals from the science lab thinking he was going to make a bomb at one point. And I guess they caught him at some point and he ended up getting expelled. And he was a super smart kid too. He was like one of those kids that was like, you would hear about getting like stupid high scores on like the SATs and stuff.
Yeah.
It was insane. So it was like, whoa, well, so much for that plan.
I mean, he must have been smart. If he was the dumb kid, he wouldn't have gotten expelled. They would have been like, he's
but
dumb.
Also, it was just like one of those things. It was like, man, what a waste. What a disappointment. And you would hear stories like that here every once in a while, not like making bombs, but like, stupid stuff. People getting caught driving while under the influence, people like getting caught doing stupid stuff in the parks.
Of course.
Things like that would happen, and obviously the student body would change.
Yeah. Were you someone who acted out in school?
No. The reason why is because I was scared to do so, because my dad was a corrections officer.
Oh my God.
He was not just any corrections officer. He was a New York City Department of Corrections officer.
That's amazing.
Working at Rikers Island. Now, you tell me, I implore anybody listening to this now, are you going to be that kid that acts out when your dad is that?
Yeah.
Who could just scare the hell out of you just by looking at you? Because he does that for a living?
Right.
I mean, a lot of kids acted out back then, for different reasons. That just happens as kids start to grow and stuff. But there's also layers to this stuff. Like, you're not going to go do that when your parents are kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Especially being Latin parents, because they have a strong sense of discipline like that. And he just happens to be that guy that has that job. So I was like, no, I'm not going to do anything crazy to piss him off. Like, no.
Right. So when you went home, what were some of the fandoms that you were into? So obviously we've talked about Sega Genesis, things like that.
Yeah.
But let's open up. What were your fandoms that you remember?
Oh my God. Again, gaming being the biggest one, obviously, because I got a Sega Genesis. My second console was a Nintendo 64. And then my other console after that was a PlayStation 2. And understand the culture for gamers at that time, especially in that environment, was that you would go to other people's houses and play the games and the consoles that you didn't own.
Yeah.
That was a lot of swapping as far as games, especially portable games, with Game Boy Color and stuff. But like that was part of the culture. When you had friends that owned other consoles, you guys would go to each other's houses and experience that stuff. That's how I played Super Mario World. That's how I played Donkey Kong Country. That's how I played a lot of my first PlayStation games like Crash Bandicoot, etc. But as far as other fandoms are concerned, again, there was a big thing with Power Rangers. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, obviously. Anybody that was a kid back then was into Power Rangers. I don't care what anybody says; they're lying to you if they say they weren't, because that was that big. It was that huge.
Was huge.
I wanted the Dragon Dagger. I wanted Saban. All those different like stuff. The other thing too that I was really into was obviously cartoons and comics.
Yeah.
Cartoons, Fox Kids. It's a big thing. Kids WB. Disney's One Saturday Morning. There's just a lot of those shows and stuff. Fox Kids specifically for me because of the Marvel shows.
Yes.
The X-Men, Spider-Man, etc. The other one too being Batman the Animated Series.
Yes.
That was a huge thing. And also Superman the Animated Series. And then I got into anime later on because a lot of people, when anime started first coming to the States, it was very underground, so you didn't see it in mainstream until Toonami.
Right.
And that's when I remember anime became really mainstream, because one of the first animes I saw was Dragon Ball Z, like a lot of other people, because of Toonami. And that led into other stuff, from Dragon Ball Z getting into Mobile Suit Gundam, which was for me, it wasn't Gundam Wing, it was G Gundam, because I started watching Gundam when that started airing. Rurouni Kenshin and Yu Yu Hakusho was the biggest one for me as far as anime, because I love that show, I love that manga, I just think it's a fun story, and similar to DBZ in certain ways, but that was that. And then finally, also again going a little bit back beforehand, toys. Specifically toys, for Star Wars, because again, Star Wars, when the special editions came out, that was a big thing. My older brother, and then eventually me, owned the original line of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi toys. He had this whole collection. I'm talking like huge. And I was a dumbass kid that broke them.
Oh, no.
Or at least some of them. I broke the AT-ST from Empire Strikes Back line. And I broke a couple other things too, and he hated me for that for a long time.
Oh my gosh.
But I still preserved the ones that we still have left. So I still have like a Return of the Jedi Luke figure and stuff like that, a Darth Vader, etc. Stuff you would expect. There was that. There was G.I. Joe's. And then also the other toy that he had the entire line for was Masters of the Universe, the 80s line. And he had that whole thing with Castle Grayskull, Snake Mountain. He had the whole set of that stuff. So I still had that, and I played with them every once in a while. But that was kind of like my little things I was into back then.
Yeah, it's so funny, man, because like I was a big toy kid growing up as well. And I think the biggest ones that I could remember having were... I had most of like the Power Ranger line. I had some Star Wars stuff. I had a lot of wrestling characters.
That was the other thing, wrestling. I completely forgot about, because I used to go to the house shows in Madison Square Garden.
Oh, wow.
My family comes from a long time wrestling fans, just a long time line of wrestling fans. And same thing with Star Wars. We're long-time Star Wars fans. My parents were there when it first opened with Episode 4 in the first beginning, when the Episode 4 first came out. So we've been Star Wars fans our entire lives. Same thing with wrestling fans. We've been wrestling fans our entire lives. So I used to go during the New Generation era, which was like the late 80s into the 90s. So like my years for me for wrestling would be 92, 93, 94, maybe 95, 96, right before the Attitude Era. Yeah. Because I think 97, 98 is when Attitude Era is really, withstanding take a year or two.
Right.
And for me, I was big fans of The Undertaker. Huge Undertaker fan. Huge Bret Hart fan. Huge Razor Ramon fan. Like, again, I'm trying to think also tag teams like the Steiner Brothers, guys like that. But going to the house shows and seeing them, that was so much fun. I've gone to Madison Square Garden, I want to say about 3 or 4 times in different eras of wrestling that I've seen. Sometimes for my birthday, my dad would treat us that. We would just go and just see them like that.
That's really cool.
I think I still have it. The foam urn that they used to give as a souvenir. When you go see it, it just says Undertaker RIP. That during that era when Paul Bearer used to come out with the urn and stuff like that, everybody in the arena would hold up these urns. Like, they didn't light up or nothing. They would just foam when this man would come out. It was eerie.
That is really, cool, really crazy.
It was dope.
So
it was
dark.
Fun. That was fun wrestling times.
That's so dark. I mean, granted, there have been... It's funny that you say that, because like I feel like America is okay with a little bit of darkness every few years.
Yeah.
So, for example, like that time was Undertaker, where like we have no problems holding up foam urns.
Even the Attitude Era was bad. Like when he was trying to look like a satanic antichrist,
right?
too. Like, whoa.
And then like 2003, My Chemical Romance. It's like completely fine to just make death parades and like.
God. And then we have Marilyn Manson
and Marilyn Manson,
all those people.
like people like that, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's cool," and you're like, "Are you sure this is really terrifying?" At the same time,
out here.
Man, it's so great because going back to the whole like toy thing, it's so funny because like I remember just like the imagination that you would have, like just coming up with these stories and things like that. I've talked about it before, but like you would always put action figures in the tub because you wanted to play in the tub, and then you jump in the tub and it hurt really bad.
Everybody did that. Me, everybody. They just said they didn't do that. They're lying to you. Everybody did.
Yeah. And not only that, it would always be super fun to have like, you know, Hulk Hogan fight the Ninja Turtles and stuff like that, you know, because you can make stories
just
like that
fun
up.
stuff used to do that. Again, I used to have I was big into Batman figures. Like 89 and was it Batman Returns figures? Batman 89, Batman Returns, Batman Forever and stuff. I used to have all that stuff. I used to have the 89 Batmobile, which is still the coolest car ever created. The coolest Batmobile ever created. It just looks dope. But like stuff like that used to be very fun. I used to do that. I used to do the same thing with the wrestling figures. I used to have some of the older, like I forgot, I think it was LJN figures that were like the rubber ones. I used to have Macho Man and Hulk Hogan.
Dude, the most 90s figure ever is the Batman figures where you would put them in the freezer and the masks would come on. This is the most
or the ones you would stick in water that would change also, depending on the temperature of the water, because the Joker figures used to do that.
Yes. I think anything where you would have to put it in the freezer or in water, or if you press the button and the heads would change. That is the most 90s toy.
The most 90s figure to me for Batman specifically are the ones, if you remember this line called Legends of the Dark Knight.
I think so.
Okay, there was like these versions of Batman that were done by like Todd McFarlane. Like they were just like, there was one that was called a futuristic Batman. This was before Batman Beyond became a thing. Batman had like this huge cybernetic like look to him, and like these crazy wings that just came out. It looked like a Spawn character,
right?
But it was a Batman character, and that whole line was just like that. And to me, it was like 90s characters, 90s comics are like characters that are just over the top, over exaggerated. I mean, I think that Stanley even kind of poked fun at it at one point, because I think it was Tom McFarlane or somebody else was like drawing a character at one point, and they were doing it like that. And he was like, "How is he going to move with all this stuff? He just looks like a walking tank. Like it's like he's carrying like 1,000 pounds on him. Like,
that's
it's crazy,
so funny.
But that's how they looked."
Yeah, it's very true. Oh my gosh. What about, do you remember any of these like commercials, like toy commercials?
Oh my God, yes.
Yeah. So what sticks out in your craw?
Oh my God. I even, every once in a while, I'll go back, especially now during the holidays, since we're recording this during the Christmas time.
Yeah.
Like I will go back every once in a while just to have that nostalgia and look at some of those toy commercials. Even watch like old Nostalgia Critic version, like stuff where he would commentate on them, because those commercials were fun. The best ones to me were the Star Wars commercials and the Star Wars toys from Galoob. Yeah. I don't know if you remember this one. There was ones that it's like the action fleet. Of the action fleet of ships, and basically they were just like, you know, bigger versions of the micro machines practically, but like you would be able to put like small little figures into them and have them like be a little bit bigger, and you could play with them, and they do all this different type of stuff. But the commercial for it was like basically there was like space outside this kid's room, and all of a sudden like all these TIE fighters would come in, and the Falcon, like they're chasing and stuff. It'd be like these crazy explosions. It was like 30 seconds of, but it was like the most epic thing ever for those toys. Or like toys like the Crossfire.
Yes.
Like stuff like things like that, or even again the Batman commercial for the Batman toys, or even just like the Marvel Spider-Man stuff, or any of the Marvel cartoon stuff that for those toy lines. Like those are fun commercials, like really intense.
Like, if anything, they're intense. They're always, it's always kids like, he has the hyper boosters.
You don't see any of that anymore. That's a lost art form.
Yeah,
like straight, like you used to get that on Saturday mornings. Saturday morning cartoons, and even like after school you get the same thing, but like Saturday mornings, that's where it was at. Like,
I feel like, I mean, I might be wrong. I haven't watched kids television in a while, but I don't think there are toy commercials anymore.
There are, but they're delivered now either on YouTube ads or like some smaller commercial, but they are not the same. Like you just don't feel that same intensity. You don't feel that same like, you know, over the top nature of like how these toys are being presented. Like they're still being marketed and branded to like these audiences and stuff, but like you're not going to see that same type of like Star Wars commercial that I saw back then. You're not going to see the same type of commercial with like, you know, Spider-Man or just like, you know, Batman or anything else, or even some of the girls' toys commercials. Like, you know, they were very cutesy, very prissy, and like, you know, proper and stuff like that. They're marketed totally different now. It's not the same.
Well, it's funny in a lot of different ways, because like, for example, in the 90s, you could completely distinguish between a girl's commercial and a guy's commercial, because like a girl's toy commercial was always like, we'll teach you how to bake, and like we'll teach you things around the house.
They're very role specific,
very role specific, or like even like board games where the whole point was to call boys, like like things.
You see, now I can understand why that's gone away now this day and age.
Exactly,
I could get that. Okay, that I'll give you that one. But like, there's again, I can only really speak for myself because again, being a guy that goes with the toys I was into, like that type of intense stuff that you got from the Crossfire commercial, like that it was like a really competitive, it was really intense.
Yeah.
Or like some of the stuff,
the theme
like,
song, dude.
Yeah.
Crossfire.
Or even the video game commercials. Like for some of them, like there's some of that stuff you just don't see the same as anymore. Like now it's a totally different beast.
Yeah, I know. Another thing, just to go into our next bit, another thing that we like to talk about as well are like different snacks and different foods that we liked as we were kids. So what are some things that you can remember? Like, just, I don't know if you remember this. One of my favorites, Dunkaroos.
Yeah, so I was thinking of that same thing. Oh my God. You see, anybody that's from that era remembers Dunkaroos. Because it was like the thing.
The best.
Like, nobody talked about it as much, but people talked about it, and they had like really stupid commercials, like really silly ones with the kangaroo.
Yeah.
But like they tasted pretty good. It was like that quick snack because of the frosting.
Yeah.
That's why it was so good. Or Lunchables.
Yeah,
Lunchables was a big thing. And I never got Lunchables because my mom refused to buy them for me.
Yeah.
She hated it because like I used to see all my friends get these Lunchables pizza stuff and get the stuff with like the different crackers and the cheeses. I'm like, yo, this looks amazing.
Bro, I don't know if you remember this. I don't know if you remember this, but the commercials for Lunchables were marketed as like, your mom doesn't love you unless you have Lunchables.
Right? Right? Like seriously, like it was
always like a kid on the bus. He would look in his lunchbox. He'd pull out a Lunchables in slow motion and go, "Thanks, Mom," and his mom's like, "I love you."
And the other kids are like, "Man, I hate this kid."
Exactly.
Right now. He's got the good lunch.
He's got the pizza Lunchable, dude.
Start looking at your own parents and be like, "Why don't you do this?" Like, come on. But that was some cool snacks like back then. Obviously, like anything involving Coca-Cola and Pepsi.
Of course,
just like the drinks and stuff. A lot of the Sunny D stuff. Obviously, I know the Nostalgia Critic has made fun of that plenty of times, and that used to be like a late '80s into '90s stuff.
Yeah,
like, especially early '90s. Also, McDonald's.
McDonald's
say what
was
you want
huge.
about McDonald's. I know a lot of people don't like it for health reasons and all this other stuff, but like McDonald's was still pretty cool back then, and it still kind of is kind of cool now, being as popular as it is. But like they used to get a lot of great toys. When Batman Returns was out before, like they flipped out about the movie, they had awesome toys for it. Like that was pretty cool.
Exactly.
Same thing, and even I would argue Burger King too, because they had the Burger King Kids Club, which is pretty dope. But it wasn't as cool as like what was going on with McDonald's.
Of course,
and all that.
McDonald's had a bunch of stuff. I remember their ad campaigns for Batman Returns.
Yes.
I remember their ad campaign for Armageddon.
Oh, really? I don't remember this. I remember when the movie came out, but I don't even remember.
Yeah, when the movie came out, they invented this new size fry called like the Armageddon, like size of a UPS box fry.
What was this?
and you would get
Epic
it.
Fry right here.
Yeah, you would get this. You would get this fry. It had to have cost $15 because it was like the size of a UPS box. And people would be like, "Oh man, this is it! Like this is the thing."
Let me ask you this: do you remember when Batman Forever came out? The cups that they had?
Oh yes,
I had the Batman ones. I had duplicates because I had 2 Batman glass cups like that. That type of stuff you don't see anymore.
Yeah,
which kind of sucks because that type of stuff was really cool, especially when big movies were coming out. Because they did it for Batman Forever. I remember. I think they also did it for the original Batman '89.
This is the thing that I can't remember though. Was Batman Forever McDonald's or Taco Bell?
No, it was Burger King.
Okay,
it wasn't McDonald's. It was Burger King. That's where you got the glass cups.
Right.
And then they had it, I think, in other stuff. I don't remember.
And
Taco
Burger
Bell.
King also had the Disney animated movies glass cups.
That's another one.
We still have those as well.
That's another one too. But specifically for Batman Forever, I remember the glass cups being Batman, Robin, the Riddler, and Two-Face.
Yes,
and
I remember that.
And I only remember that because the only ones that I did get because I wanted so much was Batman specifically.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, remember what everybody else felt, but I didn't want the Robin cup. I wanted a Batman cup.
Right.
It was like it's Batman.
Of course.
But like a lot of the other times, especially for other big movies and stuff, especially for Star Wars, when the prequels started coming out. That was a huge deal for a lot of different places besides the toys. But even the fast food chains, I don't even remember.
That was Taco Bell.
Was it Taco Bell?
Yep,
'Cause I don't remember
100%.
McDonald's or Burger King even doing anything.
Taco Bell did cups. They had cups, but it was the tops.
Yeah. That's right.
The tops would have like the ships on them or whatever, and then you'd stick the straw through like the
because
pilot.
the big thing for Star Wars was the toys, like from like Mattel and
Yes.
Galoob or whatever. Those were really where Star Wars was happening.
Exactly. Man, this is something that no one remembers, but McDonald's had this promotion. I don't know if you remember this. It was a long time ago where you would buy a extra value meal, and for an additional $5, you could buy a VHS tape of a movie.
For a movie, I don't remember. I know that you used to get discounts though, especially for the Happy Meals.
Yes.
And for the other stuff, like, and you could also get the extra toys.
Dude.
You could buy them separately. But for VHS,
So,
I don't remember that.
That is how we have Field of Dreams, Back to the Future, Backdraft. I mean, it's just like a plethora of like the weirdest movies
That's funny.
that you could buy at McDonald's for $5 and a Big Mac. Like,
That's
it's
hilarious.
really weird. But that's how I remember getting Field of Dreams and Back to the Future specifically. Oh, we got the color purple. That's another.
Wow, that's random.
It's like
What?
Schindler's
for
List. Like,
McDonald's
all
or
these-
Burger King? What? Let me ask you this, though. This brings up a good point. Do you remember that certain fast food joints used to be associated with certain like TV channels or certain types of like, kids related stuff? Because for me, Pizza Hut was always associated
Yes,
with Nickelodeon.
yes.
Every time I would go to a Pizza Hut,
All the Ninja Turtle stuff was always a Pizza Hut.
Nickelodeon would be on there, and specifically, I remember walking to a pizza, Hut, and that was the first time I saw Blue's Clues
Yes.
on a TV, like that, and I would always associate that with the smell of pizza.
Yeah.
Like, funny enough, I bring that up. I would also associate PlayStation, the original PlayStation, with the smell of pizza because I used to go to a friend's house that owns a PlayStation. That was the first time I played the original PlayStation with like Tekken 2, Tekken 3, Crash, all that stuff. He lived right on top of a brick oven pizza joint. And his dad used to, every time we used to go up there, used to get pepperoni and cheese pies there. All the time. Stone oven, brick oven pizza, son. It was really
Man, it is crazy how the sense of smell can just do so much to your brain.
Oh, yeah, man. Easily.
It's unreal how like you can look at a PlayStation and immediately start smelling pizza.
Every time, like specifically a PlayStation 1 for me though.
Yeah.
Like, because I mean, I would associate other consoles with like other things. Like PlayStation 2, I would associate with Christmas because I got it on Christmas.
Yeah.
Like that, and I played my first two games. Same thing with N64, I would associate with Christmas. But specifically PlayStation 1 and specifically Tekken 2 and Tekken 3 is what I would associate that with. And I remember that like vividly. Like I remember almost every little detail of those experiences. Like it's so cool.
Were you a cereal person growing up? Did
Of
you
course,
like?
everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody in the 90s was a cereal person.
I know.
Everybody that says the thing like, oh, I didn't eat cereal like that growing up, was like, you're lying. You're straight up lying about a lot of these things about from your childhood because everybody did it. Everybody can relate to this, especially from the years of 92, maybe all the way through 99.
Yeah.
Honestly. And for me, like my favorite cereals, obviously Lucky Charms.
Yes.
Okay. Frosted Flakes.
Yeah.
Okay, Cookie Crisp.
Yeah.
French Toast Crunch. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Was it Captain Crunch? But
Yes.
with the berries. Okay, not the standard Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
That because obviously the berries just look like a little different.
Mm-hmm.
And then was it kind of chalky a little bit, but not really, because I used to be like on and off thing with my household. And then if I had to choose one more, like I'm trying to think of, because like we used to get a lot of cereals. Oh, Fruit Loops.
Yeah. For
Fruit Loops and Trix.
Yeah.
That was the only other one. So we used to have a lot.
What is because this is another thing we talk about a lot is cereal commercials are
Oh, man.
a big thing from the 90s. What are some that you remember?
Cookie Crisp.
Cookie Crisp,
That's
yep.
one. They changed mascots like so many times.
Did they really?
Yeah, like they changed like mascots like 3 or 4 times. Like that.
The one that I remember was
the dog and the burglar, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, because there was the dog that said Cookie Crisp, and he would mess it up for his man. Like,
Yes, I remember that. Oh my gosh. Well, something that we like to do here at Childlike at Best is we like to review a cereal, and I like to review cereal with my guest that has something to do with my guest in some way, shape, or form. So I spoke with my sponsors at FYE.
Nice.
Now, by sponsor, I mean I like them and I buy all their products. And by spoke to, I mean I tweeted them repeatedly and they didn't get back to me. So the cereal that I got for you is Plus
that's
Ultra
cool.
cereal
Plus Ultra cereal
from My Hero Academia. Yeah. So
All Might is on the cover. He's like, yes.
Yeah.
This is the most epic cereal you're about to eat for breakfast, son.
yeah, I thought this would be cool.
That is funny.
Because clearly you're an anime person and you're into
Yes.
gaming and all that kind of stuff. And also you're a dude that has gains, and so does Plus Ultra.
Yes. He's got bigger gains than me, but like that's the ideal right there.
I mean,
Look at him. He just exudes epicness with this cereal. It's like every bite is just going to immediately just pump up your muscles, son. Like that's,
Absolutely.
Anybody that's listening to this now, go look at a picture of All Might on Google image search and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to go ahead and open this cereal, and then I'm going to pour some into my Reptar cereal bowl.
All right.
And I'll make sure to mic it so that way all the ASMR weirdos can loop it and make it their ringtone or whatever the weird thing it is that they do.
They're going to take that, you know, that little thing from, I believe it was from Ratatouille, when the guy bites into it, all of a sudden he takes that flash back to when he was a little kid. That's what's going to happen when you start pouring the cereal. They're going to be like, whoosh, oh my God. Takes me back to the 90s. Only now it's not the 90s. It's way past into the new millennium. To the end of the decade.
That's funny.
This is cool. This is dope. It's interesting.
Let's see what happens.
I'm just saying, though, they got a plus ultra cereal. I'm surprised I don't see this at more cons.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, this is it's like a brand new thing that FYE
Conventions, if you're listening to this, you got to start getting plus ultra cereal for your morning events.
Exactly.
I'm just saying.
Let's see here.
He's pouring that cereal into the cup. It's all colorful and stuff.
Yeah, it looks very delicious. It's reminiscent of Kicks and Tricks.
Yeah.
Tricks colors,
Like
Kicks,
they did the fusion
shapes.
dance or something.
Yes.
That is pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
So it would be fun to review this cereal, but what I think would be more fun is to review this cereal as All Might.
Oh my
since he's
God, I don't even remember like his vocals. Because it's been a minute since I've seen My Hero.
That's okay. At the end of the day, we're a comedy podcast. So
Anyway, Faye's gonna be like, "Oh, JJ, what are you doing? Stop! Just stop! It's time to stop, JJ."
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for some My Hero Academia music, and whenever you are ready,
Oh my God, I gotta. Okay, this could be
we
funny.
can. It's going to be great. Whenever you're ready, JJ.
Okay, I gotta think of this because I don't remember how All Might sounds, or I could just like make this up. Let's see it. I'm gonna try to take a couple orange kernels. He grabbed a couple orange kernels from the bowl and then he put it in his mouth. Ha ha! This cereal is amazing. This cereal is really fruity. Better than Fruity Pebbles. If you thought that your Fruity Pebbles were amazing, you need to try some of this All Might Plus Ultra cereal, courtesy of My Hero Academia. I mean, seriously, every crunch that you have into it will have your muscles bulging. The heroicness in every single morsel of this cereal is top tier. It'll hit you with the force of 1,000 exploding suns with its flavor. And I can't think of anything else, but yes,
There you
Plus
go.
Ultra.
That's great. Plus Ultra.
And
oh my
all the
gosh.
anime fans are like, JJ, that was totally wrong.
That's okay. That's so funny. I can't believe I got one of the only songs from the My Hero Academia score that sounds like a church song. Is there a scene where he goes to church?
No, I don't think so. I think that's probably like one of those like, moody, emotional scenes. Like again, it's
This episode of Childlike at Best with Mike Valdes is brought to you by Ugly Drinks. Ugly is a company that makes sparkling water with real fruit flavor. No sugar, no sweetener, nothing artificial. And with every purchase, a percentage goes to the Girl Up campaign. Ugly Drinks comes in delicious flavors like peach, lemon lime, cherry, and my personal favorite, watermelon. And guess what, Childlike at Best listeners? You can receive 10% off your first order by using the code UGLYMIKE at checkout. It's true. Usually calling me ugly would be offensive in real life, but at uglydrinks.com, it'll save you money. Visit uglydrinks.com and use the code UGLYMIKE to get 10% off your order. It's time to get real. It's time to get ugly. So obviously, you're into gaming. You have a YouTube channel called Gamers with Gains. I kind of want to go back to the beginning of your YouTube channel.
Sure.
What made you have the idea to start it?
It's a combination of different things. Now, you got to understand, I come from the age of, of gaming and stuff during the real, quote unquote, real console wars. I joke about that a little bit, but it's actually true because this was the console wars era where, again, it was Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis, and a lot of different things were happening for people. This was before social media. So the social environment was different. So one of the things that I loved about gaming is that I loved the discussion about games. Originally, I wanted to get into designing games, and I quickly understood and realized that's not what I'm all about. I mean, I wanted to design games, but I couldn't get into the scientific aspect about it with the math and everything else. You know, the actual game science aspect of it, designing and making things work how they're supposed to, mechanically wise. And then also, I wasn't all too much into the art aspect of it because I went to school for computer animation, and I grew to hate the idea of like fine art stuff, like actually doing it. Because while I wanted to make games, these people wanted to force upon us like the fundamentals of like traditional art, which is what you have to do. But like they didn't apply it to like certain stuff that we were passionate about. Like we love Disney and stuff, but we weren't talking about Disney back then. We were talking about drawing this stupid still life in front of me or this stupid naked person in front of me.
Right.
And that wasn't always fun, even though it's key to understanding a lot of what you want to get into. So a lot of that stuff happened to me, and I came to realize that I love games so much. I love talking about them. I love being a part of the conversation. I love observing them and looking at them from a critical eye. And then conveniently enough, especially right before I went to college, G4 happened.
Yeah.
G4 TV, if you remember that. That was where a lot of stuff happened, specifically extended play and X-Play. Okay, extended play was right before it became G4, but like extended play became X-Play, which was Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb. Yeah. I look up to Adam Sessler. Adam Sessler is one of my biggest role models when it came to games criticism and games media stuff. And later on, obviously, I got into other stuff like IGN, you know, GameSpot, game trailers with Jeff Keighley and stuff. Again, you know, Greg Miller, Colin Moriarty, a lot of those people that I looked up to and everything else. And then YouTube became a thing eventually. And I didn't get into YouTube till much later, till after it was really starting to grow in popularity.
Yeah.
You know, I got into YouTube, I want to say about 2010. So I've been around between 2009 and 2010, almost about 10 years.
Yeah.
Now at this point, me, you know, involved with YouTube in some way. And the catalyst for all that stuff, to me getting on YouTube and starting my own YouTube channel and talking about stuff, was DSP, was Dark Side Phil. Now, a lot of people now these days don't like Dark Side Phil for a number of different reasons, understandable. But it came to show me back then as like, okay, I could be some random person. I don't need to be any of these people, and be able to just give my opinion about games and just, you know, be comfortable with just expressing myself, and whatever opinion might come back about it, be it as it may. But I'm still putting myself out there and actually contributing to the conversation.
Yeah.
And that's when it really kind of just hit and clicked for me. And my first video that I ever did was on my older YouTube channel that's no longer active anymore, where I talked about Tatsunoko versus Capcom. I was just giving my thoughts about the game in my closet, holding a camera. As stupid as it was, but it was still something. And I think it was my camera that was on my phone at the time, but like my crappy phone that I had back then. But it was still something that I wanted to do because I felt like, okay, I want to be part of this. And that grew into, eventually years later, it's what we have now, where it's now, I was able to join up with a website, and I've been with a couple websites since, go to some of these events that I wanted to go to, like including especially E3, which I have a lot of reverence for. Even though the show has changed fundamentally over the years and it's not the same show, I still really looked at it as a great honor to be able to go there as a peer of the games industry, to be as someone that's part of the industry, giving my opinions about games, and being able to stand and walk next to a lot of these people that I looked up to for a very long time. The first time I went to E3, it wasn't my first industry show. My first industry show was PAX East. That was the first one I ever went to. But my first E3 was really where I was like, I want to be a part of this for the rest of my life, because that was the first time I met Jeff Keighley. And it was an awesome thing. The first time I met Adam Sessler, that was a moment for me. And I met Adam Sessler in a passing way, where we were both going to the Ubisoft press conference. And that was the first, like, one of the first conferences I ever went to as a media person. And I was like, yo, I'm seeing all these people. I'm seeing, Greg Miller for the first time. I'm seeing Colin Moriarty for the first time. I'm seeing, you know, a lot of these celebrities, like, you know, just randomly that are into gaming walking around me. Like, it was different than just looking at the stuff happen on my television screen, watching G4 and seeing what they were doing there like that. Now I'm actually in the midst of this. This is a totally different emotion, a different like feeling here. Yeah. And that really was like, you know, really stuck with me. And I was like, I want to be a part of this for the rest of my life.
That's awesome. And so clearly you've been to a bunch of different gaming events and all kinds of conventions and conferences and all kinds of stuff. What are some of the highlights for you?
Oh, man.
Clearly E3, obviously.
There are so many. Like, you got to understand, some of these events have moments in them that are, like, crazy. Like, my first E3 show, that same E3 show, that was the first time I met Adam Sessler. That was also the first time I met Marcus Beer, who is the Annoyed Gamer from Game Trailers. Yeah. That he does a lot of other stuff. He's into PR now, but he used to do Annoyed Gamer, which was kind of like Sessler's soapbox from G4. The first time I met them, and that was also the first time I met Cliffy B, the guy who created Gears of War. We go to this Bethesda after party there that's in the remote, like, Bubba freaking Egypt of LA that looked like it was in a strip bar. And you have a bunch of people just hanging around serving out food. There were waitresses serving food in garter belts and stuff. I remember that. And it wasn't even like alcoholic beverages and stuff. Like, you could get alcoholic beverages from the bar and stuff, but they were selling like hot chocolate shots that was just hot chocolate. It wasn't even no alcohol. It was just hot chocolate with marshmallows and stuff.
That's weird.
Hors d'oeuvres and stuff. And I remember being there amongst the survivors, it'd be like, I've never seen these people like this, but it is awesome. It is amazing. The first time, even at that same show, going to my first, my PlayStation conference, first PlayStation, sitting in the front row of like the first, well, not the front, exact front row, but like the first few rows of the show. And being there where you're getting on the actual TV as they're showing stuff on there, and being there, it's like, yo, you're here. They're announcing stuff. They're showing stuff. Like, this is amazing. Like, this is like a whole new level of like, I didn't even think like this is possible. Then there's other moments that are like pretty insane. The first time I met Hideo Kojima, like, and it wasn't even like, for anybody that doesn't know, Hideo Kojima created Metal Gear Solid. That's his baby. He created Death Stranding now as well. And, you know, meeting him randomly, it was just like saying, hi, how you doing? But it's like, yo, he's there. He's just like, yo, he's in the flesh, like there. This is not a deified person on my TV anymore. This is an actual real life person that just happened to create one of the best action stealth games of the genre, you know, of the industry. I mean, even like, again, just going to PAX East and just seeing a lot of these other people. The first time I met Jeff Keighley was another one. Like, just Jeff Keighley was funny because when the first time I met him, he was poking fun at me and some of the other people I was there with because I had the best business card at everybody there.
Wow.
Because I actually spent money to make a good business card, and everybody had these flimsy paper-like business cards. He's like, yo, this is a business card right here.
Yep.
This is one that you guys should get. Like, this is top-tier business card. And I was like, that felt so good. It was so stupid, but it was funny. The one thing I will say about E3 specifically, the JW Marriott, the bar down there is the spot to go to for any E3 show because everybody goes to the JW Marriott. It's right next to the convention center. It's right in the middle of LA Live. Everybody goes there to have drinks and stays there from like, you know, when they finish the day at like maybe 10 at night or something, maybe a little bit earlier. Everybody stays there till like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm talking to everybody. I mean, who's who of games media? Greg Miller, Colin Moriarty, Alana Pierce, Jeff Keighley sometimes. I saw, a whole bunch of people from 100 Thieves. I saw a lot of people from Kind of Funny. I saw the What's Good Games girls there. All these people, YouTubers, like randomly, just all over the place. Movie stars sometimes.
That's crazy.
Like, absolutely insane. It's just so much fun.
I'm a movie guy, and I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit about movies that were made from gaming. It's something that I feel is difficult to do successfully. It gets
talked about a lot how movies based on video games are just categorically bad.
Yeah.
There's very few times where you see an adaptation of a game in another medium like movies that actually ends up being good. There's very few. I think one of the closest ones to get that's really good is the original Mortal Kombat movie.
Yeah.
And that's a combination of Mortal Kombat 1 and 2, even though it's a PG-13. It's not R, you know, because you would think with as hyper-violent as Mortal Kombat is, that could be an R-rated movie.
Right.
But they decided not to do it, and it still kind of worked out, but like obviously the sequel sucked. And
yeah,
like,
it was real bad.
Other movies and other properties that you would expect that would be good, like Street Fighter, Super Mario Brothers, Tomb Raider, you know, a lot of others, you know, Max Payne. And the problem is that there's a lot of creative liberties that are taken by the people that are making these films that don't respect the source material, or that because they feel like it won't translate well with audiences because they think that sometimes audiences are dumb, that just they won't adapt it in a specific way. Like Tomb Raider, you know, should have followed a lot of the plot points and a lot of the stuff that was going on with the new Tomb Raider reboot.
Yeah.
Because that's what it's based on. But like those new movies, I mean, people might like them and the whole thing, but they're not really representative of what happens in the games.
Yeah, the thing that, when it comes to the new Tomb Raider, the thing that bothered me was like, I don't know if you noticed it. If you look up a picture of the poster, now once you hear this, you will never unsee it. I guarantee you. Her neck is abnormally long.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I've heard people talk about that before. Like,
I mean...
And that's just marketing to make her look, I guess, a certain way.
I mean, it looks like E.T. full stretch mode, Drew Barrymore screaming in E.T.'s face.
Big time. Like,
yes.
It's just, there's little things like that, you know, about some of these adaptations that just take away from the characters and take away from the stories that should be the focal point of a lot of these movies and stuff. It's just silly. But, like... You know, the biggest problem, like I said, is why these movies end up being bad is because the people put in charge of them just don't understand the source material. Resident Evil, okay, all the Resident Evil movies, there's like 7 of them.
There's so many.
There's so many. I get that people love them. That's why they keep making them. Okay?
Aren't they like internationally big?
Yeah, they're huge.
I think that's
especially
why.
in China, I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's the thing. Is like, no, that's why we're never going to stop having Fast and Furious movies.
And why we're never going to stop having Transformers.
Yeah, like as long as people in Asia like it, it doesn't matter if people don't like Transformers
just people
here.
In general, not even just Asia, but everywhere. Like people just go and see them because they like them, but they don't know or understand.
Well, explosions are
always appealing.
Yeah, you don't need to learn a language to understand what an explosion is.
But like, here's the thing: like the first Resident Evil movie is not based on the first Resident Evil game. It's based on Resident Evil 2, and it's not even really what goes down in Resident Evil 2. It's just cherry-picked aspects of it. It's like the same thing. Like, you remember the movie Blood Rain?
Yes.
Okay, based off the game Blood Rain. That is not what happens in Blood Rain the game at all. And by the way, that's Uwe Boll's fault. Okay, because Uwe Boll likes making all these video game movies that like he likes doing his own vision, and some reason he keeps getting funding for them. But like they're just not great movies. They're not great. They're not representative of the games. They're just not fun to watch. They're kind of whatever. They're blasé.
Right.
Seriously, and like you can say the same thing about Resident Evil. You can say the same thing about the Mortal Kombat movies, even though the first one was kind of good.
It's tough, man. I feel
Dragon. That's another one. Oh,
Double
God.
Dragon. That's funny. Yeah, I mean, when you think of movies like that, like I feel like the movies that would be successful are the movies like Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter, because they're not necessarily following a storyline that you can control in a game.
Yeah. Scorpion is Sub-Zero, deadliest of enemies.
Right.
That's literally a thing pulled straight from the game because they're two opposing sides, fire and ice.
Right.
They're ninjas. They're just ninja clans fighting each other. But
Yeah.
like all these games have definitive narratives that Hollywood and the people like directors and the writers and stuff specifically consciously choose not to adapt a lot of that stuff, or at least ignore the majority of it when it could work so well within those mediums. Again, like I'll go back to Resident Evil. Resident Evil, the idea of not having a horror movie set in that mansion, with these characters, watching things happen to them with the zombies running around. That's horror movie gold right there. They're leaving money on the table. And I get it. It might not be like the crazy like action movie blockbuster that you could put in the summer and stuff. But if you're really going to adapt this stuff and really try to look for the gold mine that you could get from the storytelling in games and now really comics, you should really have people with that put much more of an effort to really kind of take that source material and really translate it well enough that both the fans could get into it and really support it like that, as well as also pull in the general audiences without having to take so much creative liberties thinking that you're going to translate it for the better for everybody.
Yeah. Well, and not only that, going back to Street Fighter, it has one of my favorite lines in a movie ever.
Change the channel. that was funny. Like, that's stupid, but it's funny.
The line that kills me is Van Damme going, when I see that son of a bitch Bison, I'm going to kick his ass so hard.
Like, he was so miscast. Like, that was specifically his own vanity project. Had to be. Like, Guile is described as an American soldier badass. And he's just like, as American as you get, and he chose him. He chose Van Damme. You couldn't get Stallone. You couldn't get... I would have given Arnold. granted, he's got a heavier accent maybe than Van Damme. But at least, there's certain things there.
I would actually say that he looks more like Stallone anyway.
Yeah.
Like Stallone would have been a way better cast.
Pretty sure. Or you could have gone any other person that was a little bit much more fitting that character. But that again, that's the crazy thing about some of these movies. They were built in a time where the Hollywood and a lot of other people didn't understand games like that.
Yeah.
They didn't understand them as a narrative tool or at least a medium where you could get good stories from. That didn't have it so much later on until the 2000s when you started getting other movies that were a lot more crazier. And even then, some of them were still bad. Like Max Payne is one of them. I would say Postal. Postal was another one that was bad. It was done by Uwe Boll, but I can understand the concept, the idea behind that film, borrowing the craziness of that game.
They're making some movie. This blew my freaking mind, dude. They're making a movie based on Dance Dance Revolution.
I get it, but there's certain things that I was like, why?
Dude, the joke that I made on Twitter for that movie was, "Hi, my name is Mike Valdes. I'm going to be reading for the role of the Left Arrow."
The Left Arrow. Because when you think about it, it's how do you adapt that? Okay,
how in the world is that a movie?
You make up your own story about someone who loves to dance. Okay.
But that could be any movie.
That could be anything.
That could be a movie about
it's
anything.
not about the game.
It doesn't have to be about the game. Yeah.
The problem that I have sometimes though is when Hollywood tries to adapt stories from games like Uncharted, where Uncharted, Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, Uncharted 4.
You
those
can argue
are great
Uncharted's
stories.
a movie.
They technically are. That's what they're trying to emulate movies.
Yeah.
But then you look at the character of Nathan Drake and you have definitively the type of person you could cast, even the voice. You could cast it based on the voice alone. They go and they get Tom Holland to be Nathan Drake. I'm like, come on now. I get it. Tom Holland is hot right now.
Yeah.
He's cool. That does not speak Nathan Drake to me. Even young Nathan Drake from the flashbacks in that game. Who are you going to get for Sully? It's very hard to pull from stuff like that, but Hollywood just likes to go and just makes those movies and makes those decisions. It's whatever. Gonna see what it's going to be like when it comes out. It's probably not going to be good.
Yeah, that's true. What are your thoughts on Sonic?
I've talked about this and I got ridiculed for it.
Really?
On social media.
Why is that?
Because here's my problem with Sonic the Hedgehog. as fans, okay, not just as Sonic fans, but any fandom, okay, that has fans of a specific thing, that you're getting an adaptation or you're getting something, you should demand higher quality. You should demand that they be good. Don't just make excuses and settle for things being whatever. Granted, okay, we got them to change the design of Sonic the Hedgehog. Okay, he looks more like Sonic from the games than he did before him, because before him he looked like a I don't know what.
Yeah, he looked
a
real
thing,
bad. Yeah,
practically. My other problem is, okay, this story looks like it's going to suck. This is not representative of what Sonic the Hedgehog is. I don't like Sonic's personality, the way he talks. It's very 2020 humor. Sonic wasn't all about humor. He was more about attitude. Yeah. Sonic was arrogant. He was like in your face.
Always about attitude,
he was doing quips and jokes on people. Like, go look at the Jaleel White cartoon, The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Yep. That's his personality. He should be, because granted, that's a huge over exaggeration. And by the way, they should have gotten Jaleel White to voice Sonic. I don't know why that hasn't happened. Call the man, pay the man. I'm just saying. But like, all this other stuff with Sonic coming to the modern, to the real world, in the modern day. Dr. Robotnik, listen, I love Jim Carrey.
Me too.
I think he's cool. I don't think he's going to be a good Dr. Robotnik. I think that for the humor that they're going for is probably going to match up well for this movie.
Yeah.
But I do not think of Jim Carrey, and I don't know, even though there's a scene of him like looking like Dr. Robotnik and stuff, I don't think this is going to work. Everything I've seen about this does not work.
These are my thoughts on it. My thought on Jim Carrey is I'm excited because I'm just excited to see Jim Carrey be Jim Carrey again.
Yeah, and that's why they chose him. That's exactly why they chose him.
That's kind of the only reason why I'm excited at all. Do I think he looks like him? No. Do I think he's going to be a great Dr. Robotnik? No. But I am excited to see Jim Carrey be Jim Carrey.
Here's the problem, then. That this is my point to everybody else. How does this all make a good Sonic the Hedgehog movie?
That's true.
Why does this make us a good Sonic the Hedgehog movie?
Yeah.
Because what about Tails? What about Knuckles? What about Mobius?
Yeah.
Anybody forget about Mobius? Angel Island? All these places from the games that you could do a CG movie based on and come up with a great story. There's all these Sonic characters from years of Archie comics and years of other video games that you could pull from. Why does it have to be this kind of like cheesy, almost kind of like, stereotypical formula thing where like this character from this world comes into our world and there's all this other stuff that's like,
and always befriends James Marsden for some reason. Right? It is always the same actor.
It's like doing the Looney Tunes back in action movie. Why are the Looney Tunes coming into our live action thing? And it's trying to like kind of, do kind of like what Who Framed Roger Rabbit did, but not be Who Framed Roger Rabbit. It's like, why even bother doing that? Like, listen, I would love to go see the Sonic the Hedgehog movie. I'm probably going to go see it.
Right.
Because I'm a Sonic fan. Like everybody else that is a Sonic fan, they're going to go see it regardless. But that doesn't excuse that if it's a mediocre movie, we should demand better. We should demand more. This is why Nintendo, for years after the Super Mario Brothers movie, didn't want to do a movie for a long time. They didn't want to do anything with their properties because it's like, this is not representative of like what we're doing. Like, how do you get from Super Mario Brothers to a Blade Runner-esque version of Super Mario Brothers?
Yeah.
Or, like very like Highlander-esque type of Super Mario. It's like, it doesn't make sense. So I could totally understand that. Now, more recently, they're starting to kind of ease in their way into it. And they're doing a CG movie based on Super Mario Brothers, apparently.
Which I think
and
is
also The Legend
genius.
of Zelda, apparently, which is another one.
I think it's actually really smart that they're doing a Super Mario movie with Illumination.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's cartoons.
Yeah.
It's a cartoon CG property, CG movie or whatever. Why can't that be done also with Sonic the Hedgehog? I mean, granted, they did do a TV series that was kind of like, mediocre at best. Sonic Boom, which is Sonic Boom is another, again, whole nother conversation. But like, that's my point. It's like, listen, if you're going to get a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, okay, why do all these creative liberties need to be taken like this in order to make a Sonic movie rather than a great Sonic movie?
Right. The thing that's tough for me is like when the first trailer came out, there was a lot of hate on it.
Oh yeah, justifiably so.
And that's fine. But the reason why I took umbrage with it is because the director was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. We messed up. I'm going to make this better. I'm going to make it better. The reason why I think that that's a bad thing is because now it's training the internet to be hateful.
That's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing because we got them to change it. And now that same thing could be used for anything and sometimes for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
Like, perfect example. That movie that Scarlett Johansson was going to do about the transgender, club owner. Scarlett Johansson is a great actress.
Of course.
Very good actress.
Yeah.
One of the biggest actresses in the world. So if you're someone that cares about those type of topics and you care about those type of messages and movies getting out, why would you have the entire community just rally against her like that and then this movie not get made? Just on the simple fact of some of these other things. Like, that's the type of thing is like, it's a double-edged sword. It's like that power gets used, in different ways.
It bothers me because it makes me feel like people don't understand the concept of acting.
People just want to rage and be part of something.
Right.
That's the problem.
Bill Burr said this in a way better way than I ever could have, because In fact, when he said this joke, I was very jealous of it because it's a topic that I was so upset about that I never got past being upset about it to make it funny. I was just always upset about it. Where he was like, Bryan Cranston gets crap for playing a paraplegic. And then people are like, why didn't you get a paraplegic actor? And it's like, because it's acting, sweetheart.
Exactly.
Like,
people don't understand that. That's the problem. It's like, okay, you know, for anybody that has a problem with a certain actor getting cast as a certain role, okay, imagine some of your favorite characters, favorite actors or whatever else, you know, in certain movies. Like even, perfect example, a lot of people said, like, look at Black Panther.
Yeah.
Imagine if Black Panther was cast with a white actor. Okay. Would that change the messaging of the movie?
Of
that
course.
change the performance of it would probably change the performance and stuff, but does that really change like the actual message and the stuff and the themes that they were going for? That's the problem. People don't like to have those conversations and stuff. And I get it. And it's the same reason why I wasn't down when Fantastic Four happened.
Yeah.
And they cast, was it Michael B. Jordan as Johnny Storm? You know, it's not because I'm racist, not because anybody else is racist, because that's an iconic character that's a certain way. And like there's certain stuff with those stories and that dynamic between the characters and stuff that goes a certain way. That's what, you know, you're kind of messing with that. So I can understand in certain instances, you know, the stuff like this type of reaction works and other instances it doesn't. But I think that sometimes the internet, and specifically people on the internet, don't necessarily understand. It's like, okay, there are times when to really kind of get up in arms, like with that design of Sonic, like how bad it is. And then there's other times it's like, okay, like you got to dial it back.
I get what you mean. It is kind of tough. I mean, it's kind of like at the end of the day, we can all agree that Will Smith is a great actor, but we don't want Will Smith to be Adolf Hitler. You know what I mean? Because it's like Adolf Hitler didn't look like Will Smith. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
You know?
It's like, but that's the problem. Is like people, again, now these days in the modern day, like again, we're talking 2018, 2019, 2020, where people, again, are so down for certain causes or certain down for certain, like, you know, things that people are talking about, what's the zeitgeist right now that people are discussing in social media, that like there'll be that type of reasoning and stuff like that. It's like, oh, okay, I want to see more black actors in cinema and stuff.
Yeah.
So cast them in all these roles that they might not be suited for,
right?
Like that. You know, they want to see more certain things in like the Oscars and stuff. It was like, okay, well, some of these movies aren't just not doing it to make it to that point. That doesn't mean that the Academy's racist or this or something. Again, it's a lot more complicated.
It is,
It
yeah.
is, but like, you know, point being is that, you know, you have to know that when you're writing for a cause, you got to write for the right points of that cause.
Of course. It is really funny because that is something I never considered until you said it, where it's just like, would Black Panther be the same?
And here's the thing. There is a White Panther. There was a White Panther in the comics, which I believe was Bucky Barnes. So, you know, he went by a different name. But the point is like, okay, for this movie like that, if you care about so much like about Black Panther, and I did too, I thought it was a great movie.
Me too.
I wanted to feel the same way that I felt about Black Panther when I went to go see Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
Because I felt that, you know, with Marvel and the way that they were doing things, they can handle serious subjects like that. So with Black Panther, it was a lot of race stuff, but it was also about masculinity. With Captain Marvel, they looked like they were going to go talk about, obviously, you know, female empowerment and stuff like that. And it was two totally different approaches to two totally important issues. Like that. And I just didn't get that and see that. But like,
I wasn't a huge fan of that movie.
I wasn't a fan of Captain Marvel, and I wanted to. And I was really
I wanted to love it.
Because I thought that when DC did Wonder Woman, they did it their way, and it was good for what it was.
Dude, that movie was awesome.
It was good, but I wanted it to be better. I wanted it to feel the exact same way that I felt coming out of Black Panther.
Awesome for what DC was at the time.
Well, that's the thing. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You know, again, Wonder Woman, one of the first big female superheroes, you know, that should be a
of
topic,
course,
you know, female empowerment and all that other stuff and other things they got into. And it should be handled with a lot of reverence and stuff, you know, and a lot, especially with those subjects. And I wanted Marvel to do the same thing because I saw Marvel do Black Panther and I was like, okay, they know how to do this type of stuff. They get it. And they didn't do that for me with Captain Marvel. Now I'm hoping Black Widow does the same thing. Because the thing is, Black Widow, I feel like, especially with the actress Scarlett Johansson and also the character Black Widow, there's a lot more respect and a lot more respect.
Well, that character is
a lot more so than
deep,
Captain Marvel. You know, right now.
I think so too.
And I think also other things outside of it with Brie Larson contributed to it. But like the point is like I feel like that's going to be the movie that Marvel really does right for that type of audience.
I definitely agree with you. I'll be honest about the whole Brie Larson thing. I was outside of the whole like political standpoint of it because I know that got her in some hot water as well with some people watching the movie because they were like, oh, like I don't agree with what she's doing politically.
You want to know why though? Because it has nothing to do with politics.
Yeah.
A lot of it, what this has to do, and you're seeing this a lot with Disney and Star Wars. You know, especially with The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
And a couple other movies here. There, like the most recent examples would be Charlie's Angels, the remake of Ghostbusters, which that's what it is. It's a remake reboot. And they just didn't want to admit it. The problem is, it's not about politics. It's about talking down to the audience and talking to the audience in a way that is very condescending. And a lot of people, which I don't understand yet, why is it that some studios and some individuals that are celebrities and people that are popular that have this influence in this space, why they think that's okay?
Yeah.
And, that's a problem. Like, Star Wars fans are not sexist pigs. Star Wars fans are not people that don't want women in their fandom and stuff.
Of course.
What they don't like, though, is being told that they are that when they're not.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like, people want to love Rey as a character. And again, I know we're getting a tangent of Star Wars, but like,
I love Rey.
Like, the thing is, Rey's cool and that's fine and dandy, but like, you can't deny for the fact that she does come off like a Mary Sue because like of all the plot points that have happened in the last 2 movies.
Mm-hmm.
And from other stuff that might happen with The Rise of Skywalker, maybe that'll be the case, maybe it might not be, but like, this is what we have right now. And Star Wars fans that have issues with that have issues with that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there's certain things that a lot of the people in charge and all these other places on social media have been saying that. You see that in a lot of places reporting on it. You see that a lot of the people involved with this stuff. Like, I don't think Rian Johnson or Taika Waititi should be going out and calling Star Wars fans all these different things or saying that he'll ruin their fandom. Like, I get it. He's joking. I get it. You're picking at the beast, but like, there's a certain way to talk to fandoms. And it doesn't matter what franchise you're for or what you're working on and stuff. You can't just be so condescending and rude to them and then not expect the backlash or the reaction that you get. Look at what is it? The guy who did Ghostbusters again. I can't remember.
Paul Feig.
He did that a lot when Ghostbusters was being made.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that people have a problem with, and the problem is with that, people don't want to have that discussion. They just want to have it their way or the highway, and you can't be like that.
Yeah, it is really tough because I completely agree with you. And in fact, the things that bothered me about Captain Marvel
was stuff like that.
were things like that, which I never put words to it, but it is where I felt like I was being talked down to.
And here's the thing. The whole reason why people were pissed off at Brie Larson is because she did that before the movie came out. Okay. And that there was a time when, she got on the thing that it was on the news, that she was saying that she doesn't want to hear from white critics.
Right.
But the way that she explained it and what she was trying to say was not like linked up. It wasn't the same thing. Like, she was trying to say that she doesn't want the same perspective from everybody all the time. But the way that she said it came off as rude. And everybody was like, yo. Like, and you notice no other Marvel actors do that.
Right.
They're not out there. Like, they have their own political views and their own views and stuff, and that's great. People got a lot more respect for them because they're not being talked down to like a child.
Right.
And I think that's the problem with her specifically.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Captain Marvel that bothered me the most is 2 main things. One was I hate anything that is a period piece and it's constantly reminding you what period it's in.
Oh yeah, like it's obnoxious about it.
By lines of dialogue.
Blockbuster, Radio Shack.
Like that's
players,
literally like watching an episode of Stranger Things. If a character is like, "Hey, why don't you get your Duran Duran record so we can put it on our vinyl player and listen with our headphones over our heads
in your Dodge Camaro,
in our Dodge Camaros? Why don't we do that?" And you're just like, holy crap, this is 1984 right now.
Yo, that's a lot of 1984. I need to relax.
You know what I mean?
You're going to tell me you want to go see Tron.
1984, exactly. Where you're just like, Jesus Christ, dude. Like, I get it. It's 1990. I get it.
You know what that is from, though? That's from directors or teams that don't know how to make a period piece that just immerses you in it.
Yeah.
They want to they want to make it clear that it's part of this. And I think also that has to do with trailers.
Yeah.
That's part of the
marketing. Yeah, you're
stuff.
definitely right.
And I think also has to do with just trying to appeal to the nostalgia of people, specifically for period pieces. Like, again, with Captain Marvel, the 90s. Even, I could argue, even with the World War II stuff from Captain America, the First Avenger. I mean, it wasn't as obnoxious. I think that older time periods, like World War II, like Victorian era, and even like prehistoric stuff, I feel like they're handled a lot more way better when they're a period piece like that compared to what we get when we get more recent, like to the 80s,
well,
70s.
also, there are periods we can't argue about because we weren't alive.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
You know
that's
what I mean?
True.
To where it's like, I was alive during the 1990s, you know?
You know what's like that? You know what's a good example of that? You ever seen The Get Down on Netflix?
Yes, I have.
My parents lived through that era, like in the Bronx specifically. During that stuff when it was going down, and there's like an appeal to that and stuff. But then there were certain things that's like, okay, like that's not like that. That's not like that. That's not like that.
But to be fair, man, I was using it as an example. But like Stranger Things doesn't do that. Like Stranger Things just lets you be in the world.
They have their references.
They do, of course.
Cool.
They have their references. Exactly. To where it's like, you know, for example, the thing that 100% the thing that bothered me in Captain Marvel were all of the music drops.
Yeah,
I was
music
like,
doesn't match up to that story. And I think it's also obnoxious the way the music choices.
Not only that, literally, it all like led to just like me boiling until the third act fight was "I'm Just a Girl" by No Doubt.
And that's the thing; it didn't feel like it was earned. It felt like it was.
None of it felt like it was earned.
It was the most common denominator, and it was trying to be obnoxious. That's the thing, because it's a female superhero. This is the type of song we got to have. It's like, no, you could do female superheroes in a much better way without doing stuff like that. Look at, again, Black Widow.
Yeah.
Black Widow is probably the best one they got in the Marvel Cinematic
So
Universe.
good, yeah. Absolutely.
Even Gamora, I would argue Gamora, another one. And that's
Gamora's
another
great.
one with the music where I feel like it's not a period piece. It takes place in outer space and stuff, but like the 80s and the like late 70s to early 80s stuff.
That's the other thing.
matched up with it.
I think Guardians uses music as a character.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's
James Gunn that does that.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. It's just because James Gunn's very good at that. But and he's always been good at that. Even when he did like Super, I don't know if you saw Super.
I didn't get to see it. No.
Yeah,
I know of it though. It's
a great movie with Ellen Page and Rainn Wilson from The Office.
That's right.
Very, very good. What if superheroes were real? Kind of a thing. Little kick-ass kind of Watchmen, but more comedic.
Yeah.
A little bit like that. Super, super funny, but the soundtrack is bumping. And it makes sense to the story and all that kind of stuff. Same thing with Guardians, where the Jackson 5 drops and all these different kinds of needle drops that are in it are perfect for the story.
You know what's also interesting too, because besides music, I think also another big topic, especially now with Star Wars coming out, is humor. I think Marvel, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, they've gotten their humor right because of the type of themes and the atmosphere that they set up with all their movies, even the darker ones.
Yeah.
Like that humor works out well. And you've seen that same type of humor bleed out into Star Wars, and it doesn't work.
Dude, as a comedy fan and as a comedian, it kind of bothers me that 2 or 3 years ago, people were like, oh, the best comedy that I saw this year was Thor Ragnarok. And it's like,
it's
are
funny,
you
but
joking?
It's not that great compared to other comedian or comedy movies out there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like we're seeing superhero movies are comedies to people now.
Some of them,
Superbad was a comedy.
Especially the Guardians, you could say the same thing because Guardians is kind of like that.
Yeah.
Well, really, Guardians is really the reason why Thor is like that. Thor Ragnarok is like that.
That's the thing that just blows my freaking mind. Like, you can literally ask somebody, hey, what are your favorite comedy movies? Oh, probably 21 Jump Street, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, and Thor Ragnarok. And you're like, what?
And you know why? I think that's because they're so mainstream, and that's stuff shoved in everybody's face.
That's true.
Because certain comedies, and I would even argue other genres like horror and stuff get shoved to the side because of the superhero genre.
Rom-coms too.
Rom-coms is another one. It's the same thing. Like there are good rom-coms out there, but not many people are going to remember those relationships or those series of events compared to what they would probably get in what they saw in Guardians 2 with Gamora and Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Things like that. It's just it's just because they're so mainstream and so put in your face and they're so hot right now. And that's the conversation. That's what everybody has to pull from so easily.
Yeah, I definitely think that somebody said it on a podcast, and I agree. Superheroes are basically like our Westerns right now.
Yeah,
where
right
it's
now,
just it's just going to be a thing for the next 20 or 30 years.
I don't think it's going to stop anytime soon because the problem is
not.
The thing about superhero stories, and again, this comes from comics specifically, you could go for years telling so many stories and then have them, like what they did with Avengers and everything else in Endgame, interconnect. It's a bigger thing and have that reward to the fandom that sticks with you like that. But you still have so many more stories to pull from them. Again, comics is such a gold mine for Hollywood right now.
Yeah.
There's so many superheroes that have movies in development now. Granted, Sony has all types of messed up stuff going on with Spider-Man right now, and everybody wants Spider-Man to stay in the MCU. But they were already talking about doing a Silver Sable movie, doing the Venom movie, Venom 2, doing the Black Cat movie, doing a Morbius movie. I was like, what?
Yeah, without Spider-Man.
Without Spider-Man. Again, all this crazy
and with
stuff.
Jared Leto.
And then, mind you, that's not counting all these other Marvel characters that are still, in limbo for a lot of these studios. Again, there's all the Incredible Hulk characters. There's all the X-Men now that are going to the MCU. There's a Fantastic Four stuff. There's the Inhumans. There's, again, the Defenders. There's all these different things that, again, that's just Marvel alone. Yeah. DC has their own tomfoolery going on, but it's a lot of stuff that you're not going to see this go away, and I don't think we're going to see this go away in our lifetime.
Oh, no.
Honestly.
Definitely not at all. I think the only thing that's going to stop, at least for a little bit, is Star Wars.
Star Wars is going to stop for a bit because that's not indicative of the property. It's indicative of the people that are running it.
I agree.
I think that's the problem. And the change, there's a lot of changes going to happen with Star Wars. I think Mandalorian is really the one that's really going to have that other shift again.
That show is
because
outrageous.
The show is really good.
It's outrageous.
And again, it appeals to both older Star Wars fans and newer Star Wars fans. While the newer movies, Force Awakens and Last Jedi, really, especially Last Jedi, really tried to hammer in about getting rid of the old stuff. And older Star Wars fans got a problem with that. And I can understand why, because that's 40 to 50 plus years with the fandom. You're just dunking on them, really. And it's Mandalorian, especially with its time period and the way that it like shoots things and tells these stories, it has a reverence for it, but it tries to give you something new, and people love that.
I think that, well, first of all, Favreau's a genius when it comes to that stuff.
Favreau's the man now.
Yeah, he's really always been, though. He's always been.
Him and Kevin Feige. They're the man
exactly.
Right now.
Yeah, well, yeah. Didn't Kevin Feige now doesn't
he's
he?
working on a Star Wars
He's
project.
working on Star Wars,
Funny,
yeah.
And you want to know why? Because Bob Iger said so.
Exactly.
That's the thing. I think that when him and George Lucas had faith in Kathleen Kennedy, because of her, Kathleen Kennedy's repertoire of stuff is like huge.
Oh, yeah.
Like she's done a lot of big movies that you wouldn't even realize she had involvement with. But like a lot of their faith, I feel like, has been diminished because of the reaction that's happened from these last couple movies. And it's not just Last Jedi, it's Solo. I think Solo is when everybody cracked.
Yeah.
I mean, Last Jedi really hurt everybody in some way, but Solo is where everybody was like, okay, that's it, I'm done.
Well, one thing I will say, and I'm sorry to all the podcast listeners, because I went an hour without talking about Donald Glover, but I'm going to talk about Donald Glover.
I like Donald Glover.
He was the best part of that movie.
He was the best part of that movie. And the thing is, he's cool as a young Lando. Like, he really talked with Billy D. Williams, and he got it.
Dude,
I think he got it.
That story is my
That's
favorite
hilarious.
story.
That's hilarious. When he was talking about it on like talk shows and stuff,
Yeah.
it's really funny.
He was like, he just for the listener that doesn't know, he had a lunch with Billy D. Williams. Well, he asked him, hey, do you want to go out to dinner? And he said, let's go out to lunch. He immediately got downgraded to a lunch. And then he was like, okay, so this is what I was thinking, maybe he was born like with some poor parents and like, he wanted to, do all this stuff. And he said, I had this really great moment where he wasn't even paying attention to me. And he just went, I don't know, man, just be charming.
Exactly. It's simple. It's simplicity. And that's the problem. Like, I get it. Like, they want to do something new. Disney wants to do something new with their Star Wars. This is why you don't see a Tatooine cantina, Mos Eisley cantina, in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge.
Yeah.
Okay? They did the fatal mistake, in my opinion, of really trying to isolate the older stuff and not like absorb it into the newer stuff. And I think a lot of it has to do with contracts. I think a lot of it has to do with merchandising. There's a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't have the details about that I feel like dictated those decisions. And it sucks. Because while they want to play on the nostalgia to give us stuff like Solo or whatever we might get in Rise of Skywalker, according to what people are saying and stuff, like it's a shame because like they from the very get-go, it felt like they just tripped all over themselves.
Well, to get into, because I'm a real big theme park fan as well, and to get into like the theme park politics of it all, that. The Star Wars, Galaxy's Edge is losing money.
They haven't been doing good. They're in both places, in California and here.
Well,
in Florida.
I mostly, it started in California, and now it's the same. It's the same thing here.
Yeah.
And Disney is like wondering why. So much so, this is actually
it's expensive. That's the biggest reason.
Yes, it's
stupid expensive.
It is stupid expensive. However, they would have made their money back had they done certain things correctly.
Oh, yeah.
Because, for example, the thing that they didn't do correctly was telling people, there's going to be so many people here, you're going to have to get a fast pass just to get in.
Yeah, they hyped it up.
So it scared people from going.
Yes, people was like, I'll wait till it's off season.
Exactly.
That's everybody does that in all the theme parks.
Yeah.
Even Universal, everything.
So that's already part of it as well. People are scared to go.
Yeah.
So because they think that there's going to be too many people there, when in fact there aren't. In fact, it's just
there's
a normal.
People, but it's not like as crazy as they were.
It's not as crazy as they were expecting that it would be, and not to mention, especially in Florida, a percentage of the land wasn't even finished being built.
Which is a shame because it's like they've done that in the past. Like I remember when I was younger, I went to the early access to Animal Kingdom. They're still building and stuff, and like there was stuff there like that. It wasn't like it was like when you see in the background sometimes. I remember seeing this at Universal where they were building the Harry Potter place.
Yeah,
it was just like all these beams and stuff like there. It was like it looked unfinished like that. But this one for Galaxy's Edge is like people want to go and experience a lot of great stuff, but also don't want to pay an arm and a leg for it.
Yeah,
especially when they go there, they want things to be have some sort of fun experience that's like it's complete. You don't want to go there and feel like, oh, I spent all this money, I didn't get to see everything. That sucks. That's a crappy feeling.
That's the thing that I also think is really tough as well. I'm not saying don't charge for a lightsaber,
But $200 for a lightsaber.
But that's what I'm saying. There was a YouTube video that I saw that they made such a great point where they said, I don't know if I would be able to enjoy this if I didn't have money.
That's the problem. That's a huge problem. And with Disney World specifically, you could go there with a decent amount of money and have an amazing time.
Exactly.
With everything. Obviously, you have to plan out what you have to do.
Of course.
And something like Galaxy Edge, from people that have talked to me about it that have gone, and I haven't gone yet, as someone that
Me neither,
on
yeah.
the outside looking.
I want to go,
but like I look at some of the images of like the cantina. I look at those drinks, like, and just to get a glass of something, because the first thing I would want to do is I want to go there and have the blue milk, or the green milk, whatever. But blue milk out of principle for episode 4.
Sure,
but. Looking at those prices for all these other drinks, just to even get into the cantina, which you can't even really stay in, apparently, I was told.
No.
Like, you're going to pay that money to grab your drink, run out.
Well, first of all, it's a 2-drink minimum, and once you've had your 2 drinks, you're kicked out.
Yeah, to me, I don't like that. And, if I'm on vacation as someone that's spending money to be there, I'm not getting kicked out of a place. Just make the place bigger and make it so that way people could go to. I understand they have to cater to a lot of people.
Yeah.
I understand this is Star Wars. Fans are crazy, and there's people that are all over the world crazy about Star Wars. But there's certain things that are common sense with just the experience of just being someone that is a fan of this stuff that goes to these theme parks. It's like, how am I supposed to have fun if I'm like paying my entire wallet and I get treated like I'm just, going to the DMV?
Yeah.
That's not fair. That's not fair to me as someone that's being a guest there.
Right.
And the other thing too is you could say the same thing about the rides. You could say the same thing about, the experience there, because they have cool stuff. That the ARG stuff, when you're talking to different people, going to different shops where it's like this scum and villainy thing where you find this one guy, he's like, you have to say a certain word or something, and he takes you to this other store, has all these extra collectibles and things you could buy. That's also part of the ARG too. Like, stuff like that is cool. Even the things that they were talking about with the cruise ship. I don't know if you heard about this.
Yeah.
The cruise ship that it's like you're in space. There's a whole ARG while you're on the cruise and stuff.
Yeah.
That stuff is amazing. But like $1,000 plus a person.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
$2,000 plus a person, like, for all this stuff. And that's not even counting food, by the way. Like,
yeah, and that's
insane.
Well, it's I don't know how much you know about it, but it's about 2,000 for, and
it's like a 7-day cruise, right? Or a couple-day cruise?
It's specifically for 2 days, and you're not allowed to leave. So you're stuck on that thing for 2 days.
Wait, so the boat that just goes out to sea and just comes back, or?
It's not. It's basically. I don't know if it is a boat or not. I don't know.
I'm talking about the cruise, because the cruise ship is the one that I know they announced at D23.
Oh, there's a cruise ship.
Yeah, there's a cruise ship, not the hotel, because the hotel's a whole separate.
I was talking about the hotel.
Okay, the cruise ship. The way they have it is like one of the Disney cruise lines and stuff. They go to their private island and stuff. It's a couple days, okay? There's a few days at sea, and the windows have LCD screens. Instead of looking out to sea, it's outer space.
Yeah, the hotel has that as well.
Something like that, okay? And on the ship, you also have an ARG where it's like, okay, you choose either the Resistance or the First Order.
Hotel
and
has
you're doing
that as well.
different things for that based off the app and all this other stuff that you could do that you get when you're becoming a guest there. And
Yeah.
to me, that stuff is cool.
Right.
But again, you're paying so much money to be there. Just to get into the door. Like
Yeah.
that. And it's like there's no way to really streamline that, or at least make it so that way you're not like completely just blowing all your stuff just to be there.
Well, and that's the thing. It's you have to think of a couple of things. So it's gonna come out like the hotel is probably gonna come out. They're gonna start to realize, people aren't staying because it's too expensive.
Yeah.
So let's lower our rates, or we'll have certain deals. Or whatever. People go. Now, the way that they've rigged it is that you're kind of set up to have these like quote unquote storylines with people that you don't know.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Like, I'm not trying to be mean or anything like that.
You don't want to be like that, forced to interact with someone when you're on vacation.
But I'm on vacation, and I don't want to be forced to do a task with Gladys, who does not understand English.
Yeah.
And so that's just...
It'd be different if you could do it with your family members. Like,
Of course.
That's common sense to me.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what it was made for, but I also think that Disney didn't take into consideration the hipster weirdos that just go, them and their girlfriends.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just weird when you think about it.
So, because there's more of us than there are families,
Yeah.
Going to the
Especially
Star
for
Wars
Star
hotel.
Wars.
Yeah, for the Star Wars hotels.
But going back to one of the things I brought up, or that we were talking about, is that the other thing too is keep in mind all this stuff is based on the new movies.
Yeah.
For the older fan, for fans like me and you that love the original trilogy, that might like the prequels as well, like that. Where's all that stuff? Where's the Mos Eisley Cantina? Where's the? Obviously we have the Millennium Falcon, but like, where's the stuff, the celebrations for the bounty hunters, for like the stormtroopers, for the rebellion? Things like that are, again, the Old Republic and stuff like that. I feel like because Disney wants to make their own identity with their version of Star Wars now, that completely isolates or alienates all the people that love the original trilogy, which is what Star Wars means to a lot of people.
Right.
And you don't see that with the parks.
It certainly makes sense on a business level because, you now have an experience that you can only do there.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh, well, the only way I'm ever going to go to Batu is if I go to Disney World, or whatever.
You know what would have been clever if they had it differently in each park? Like in Disneyland and Disney World, they had two.
That would be
different
so
plans.
sick.
Because imagine if one of them was Tatooine and the other one was Batu. That gives you reason to go to both.
Exactly.
Because they own Star Wars.
It's actually why I think it's really genius that they changed the Tower of Terror in San Diego to Guardians of the Galaxy, but Tower of Terror is still here.
Exactly.
So now it gives theme park nerds like me the reason to go to both. It makes the most sense to do that. But yeah, this has been an amazing conversation, JJ.
Awesome.
Where can people find you, dude?
Oh, man, I am all over the place. Right now, I am only on Twitter, YouTube. I mean, not Twitter, but YouTube, sorry.
Yeah.
I'm on Twitter, too, okay? On
you
YouTube.
Are.
Okay, my YouTube channel is youtube.com/gamerswithgains channel, or you could just search Jakejames Lugo on there. Again, subscribe to my channel if you guys can. I do gaming videos every single week. I do multiple times a week sometimes. New reviews, new interviews, my podcast shows, new convention and event coverage, all this different stuff I put on there, game previews, etc. I'm also on Twitter at Jakejames Lugo. You can find me on there. I'm constantly tweeting out a bunch of stuff, sharing stuff of what I'm doing, my new projects, all the videos, stuff like this. Probably going to tweet about as well. I'm also on Instagram at Gamers with Gains. You guys can find me on there. Again, I post every day. Practically. Probably going to post some stuff on here when we finish recording.
Yeah, of course.
Also, you can find me on Patreon. Patreon is really important because for the $1 level or higher, okay, and I have multiple tiers, but for the $1 level or higher, I have a ton of exclusive content on there, including early access to my videos, exclusive podcast shows that I do, polls, and a whole bunch of other updates and stuff that I do specifically for my Patreon. Again, it allows me to do a whole bunch of cool stuff eventually, for my YouTube and everybody else, things like that. So again, check out all that stuff whenever you can. Show some love, show some support, and again, I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. And for me, you can find me on Instagram at Mike Valdes, on Twitter at I am Mike Valdes. You can go to whoismikevaldes.com to find out the answer to that question. And that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening. Subscribe, tell your friends so we can grow this family. You guys are amazing. Have a great week and have a great holiday. Bye, besties.